If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and so many more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started and have fun.
I'm so excited and I just can't fight it. I'm about to puff, pass, and I like it.
Welcome to this week's episode of Puff Puff Pass. This week we have Reiki instructor and tarot card reader, holistic healer, Lauren Mooney. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Lauren Mooney,
Yes.
define Reiki for us.
All right. Yeah. So Reiki. All right. It's kind of a loaded question because there really isn't like one answer, but Reiki itself is sort of like refers to like healing energy, like life force energy, but Reiki is kind of, it's a Japanese philosophy that kind of came about in, like, I don't know, I think it was like around 1913. Not that this is a history lesson, thankfully. But it's like I've just been learning, and I just started teaching. I just taught my first like group Reiki training. So like I've really been grappling with, like learning recently, just sort of more of the Japanese mode of it all. And like there's definitely Reiki itself is a philosophy, and then there's like things that stem off of it, or like the healing hands part of it. But that's like the way, there's like a way of living, a way of thinking, like akin to Buddhism, but like a little bit more particular to a lot of specific things like symbols and stuff of Reiki. But it's a healing modality for the purposes of what we're talking about tonight, and the other questions you may ask. It's a healing modality, and it's oftentimes like used like light touch with hands, and that's the way that people receive the healing energy. But also it can be sent from a distance, and it's something that you can tune. I call it tuning into your own frequency, is how I like to explain it to a lot of people. Like it's like if a bunch of radio stations are going on at once, and then you like tune into this one like pure station that like feels like your higher self, pun intended for the sake of this podcast. But yes. So there, I'll leave it at that, because I could literally probably talk for the whole podcast about like, what is Reiki?
Yeah. So what inspired you to get involved with the practice?
Yes, good question. Okay, so I feel like it really did stem from long before I ever knew what Reiki was, which is the fact that I grew up Christian. So I like to sometimes say that I was taught from a very early age to believe in things that like aren't there, or just like magical thinking or things like that. Like in high school, I kind of dabbled with tarot cards, or before that, and then the Reiki itself like came to me, I guess, I don't know, it's like 5 or 6 years ago now. It's so much about self-healing, like the journey of like learning Reiki and being a Reiki teacher and all of that. It's like the more you delve on the path of Reiki, the more you realize you can be a practitioner, but you could really just be giving yourself Reiki and learning about Reiki as a person, and going on your own healing personal journey with it, and like never do it for other people, and that would be totally fine, and like you could get so much out of it. So it like came to me when I needed it, and part of it was like my mom actually had stage 4 melanoma, and she's actually since passed away. But yeah, like, so I think I needed it then, but I think like I also just like needed a whole change of pace of life, because I had like a more typical job then too, and went to an office and all of that. And then I did this training this one weekend, and it was just like, whoa, like, and I think it put a lot into context for me, where like I had always been doing that, like at all of my jobs. I mean, I think a lot of like women end up falling into a role like that at small boutique agencies where they're project managers, I would imagine. But like just kind of like a mom of the office, like people would always come to me, talk to me, like I think I was always like doing healing work, but it like kind of always felt like semi inappropriate. And then like once I could actually be like, I am actually an energy healer and I charge for energy stuff, like it really just clicked. And I was really able to like help my mom with it too and stuff, which was really cool. Yeah. So yeah, that's how I got into it, I guess. Originally I had like one friend that was doing it, and like thankfully I got to ask her kind of about her stuff. And I had a couple treatments with people, and I was just sort of like, okay, like I guess I just like, it was like I went down the rabbit hole, I guess, of it. Like it was like I followed the breadcrumbs, which I feel like is something Reiki does as well. It's like so much about like noticing synchronicity and like slowing down and like being in the present moment, which I know can sound like really like, what the hell does that actually mean? But that's a lot of what Reiki's about, is like slowing down, as I remind myself.
What kind of training did you have to go through?
Yeah, so that's a good question, because that's another thing that I feel like I've been changing what I feel about recently as I start to teach it myself. So there's these like, for the most part, like the Western version of Reiki is like you can do like a weekend training and like get what Reiki 1 and 2, or like I did Reiki 1 on a Sunday, and like it was like a whole day. And then there is like, so basically you do this like 1 day training, and essentially you could just be like, and now I'm going to do Reiki for other people like the next day, but you really, that's not like encouraged. It's like very much like, do Reiki 1, and that's a focus on self-healing. And yes, you can see people, but don't do it right away. And like, just there's like some protocol with all of that, or at least highly suggested stuff. But and then yeah, you basically just do like a sequence of trainings, and it can be broken up in either like 3 or 4 typically. Like there's like levels 1 through 3, but 3 really is like master level, but like master teacher level is sometimes like broken up. But yeah, it's really, you can get all kinds of ways of doing it. And now, of course, a lot of people are offering like virtual trainings as well, which I have not done personally, but because I got all of these certifications before the pandemic. But yeah, like I think the one thing I was going to say I'm shifting on is because I feel like it's supposed to be more of sort of like a mentorship, and that you can have a relationship with your teacher that extends beyond that like 1 day workshop or weekend or week or whatever it is. And so I really am trying to do that, even though I only have a few people that have trained with me thus far. But my last Reiki teacher that I had, like, she's like a mentor to me, and I can like talk to her anytime. And like yeah, so I feel like there's something about like the way that it's been a little bit like, oh, you can just do this one magical day and then you're do Reiki. Like it's really like a lifelong thing. Maybe not for everyone, because once you get attuned to it, like in the trainings, they attune you to this frequency, which is like, I won't go too deep into, because part of Reiki is like the mystery and the secrets, and like you can read all about it in books and you can find it online. But before you could do all of that, there was like a lot of it was these like certain things that you're only get to like see or learn about when you like partake in these different trainings and these different mentorships.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Almost like a secret society.
Yeah, like there's like symbols and stuff, and that you can now easily find if you Google them, and it's not like you're gonna like, like disappear or like something bad's gonna happen. But like, I do think it's cool to try to honor that as much as possible, and not just be like, and I'm gonna tell you all the little things,
That's really cool though. So I went to school to be an esthetician like 10 years ago.
Cool.
So sorry, someone's beeping. I don't know who they are. They're in my driveway. They're gonna kill me.
No.
Sorry.
The
so
podcast took a turn.
I know, right? Like I'm never interrupted except on Wednesday nights around 7 p.m.
So yeah, so I went to school as an esthetician about 10 years ago. So I know very little about Reiki, but I know somewhat about it. And I've heard that your first Reiki session can be very emotional for some people. And why do you think that is?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. So I don't think that there's like probably like one answer, like as far as like why that could be for like, a particular person, I suppose. But so Reiki itself is a very like gentle healing modality. Like and some people refer to it as like a passive healing modality, which just what they mean by that is just that the person that's receiving the Reiki really doesn't have to do anything. But when I was just starting to teach it, I was like, well, that's not entirely true, because you're not like supposed to send Reiki to someone or give Reiki to someone if they don't know that it's happening. And it's like, I know that sounds like weird, but like, as someone like comes to us for a session, they obviously like know that it's happening. But it's like, it is like a real, like a two-way thing, where it's like you need to be like open to receiving the Reiki energy. And like, I actually, I'm like, can I share this story? Yeah, I'm not gonna like say who any of these people are. I don't even really actually know who this is. It's like a friend of a friend who she wanted to gift her friend a Reiki session because it had been such like a nice, like peaceful, beautiful experience for her. So
Mhm.
she was like, oh, I would love to like her to have this experience. And then she had a really bad experience, like not bad. Like I don't really think something's like, I try not to describe things as like good or bad, but she had an experience that was like maybe what could be an emotional experience, where it was like unsettling, and they just kind of felt like it shook things up for them. Like it
Mhm.
kind of made them feel like, whoa, like afterwards they felt like really exhausted, maybe like, I mean, now I'm elaborating because I don't know all the details, but like just using this as an anecdotal example. Yeah, like I think that depending on, so because it brings you into alignment, going back to my definition of like tunes you into your own frequency, like that's going to be a different adjustment for everyone. And so like, I don't know, an example is like when a lot of people, when they do Reiki 1 and they get attuned to the Reiki, like that happens in different ways for different people. Like the days after I did that, I like couldn't eat meat, and like I normally would eat
Mhm.
meat, but for some reason, like every time I would eat meat, I felt like, look, this isn't like working with me. And so it was like that was part of like my body getting into like energetic alignment for that like attunement. And so like similarly, if someone comes to someone for a Reiki session, depending on like kind of what you don't even have to really know what it is. Like, it's like you don't necessarily know what's like bringing you out of balance, like emotionally, right? So like
Mhm.
that like bringing into balance could like take like a few days of you like feeling really low, and then you balance out. Like it's like it flows for like longer than just the session. And it's like, so that's why I tell people things like drink a lot of water, like similarly to getting like a facial, like as an esthetician. And I would
Mhm.
say similarly to Reiki, I mean, not just esthetician, but like also people that do hair and like people that work in that way with people. I mean, I do believe that you're like working with energy, and that you have the capacity to be doing like healing work. Like you don't even necessarily have to like think about it in that way, but I think it's like similar to Reiki in the way where you're like holding space for people, and people, I would imagine, could even get like emotional during a facial. I'm trying to think if I have, only just because I'm like really close with my friend that I do facial, that gives me facials, and I'm like, oh my god, this feels so good. But yeah, like I don't know. Am I answering this question? I feel like now I'm like, am I stressed
No,
out?
no, you're telling me no, it's true because I have had clients cry on my
Yes.
table literally. So I did I'm just like not trying to puff my chest. I did a facial on JLo's mom,
Amazing.
and
Love J-Lo.
yeah, her mom is really great. But at
That's
the end of it,
awesome.
she was crying on my table about missing her deceased loved ones. I'm like, what the hell? Like, I was just
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
JLo's mom's crying on my table.
That's amazing. And yeah, that's exactly what yeah, you totally get what I'm talking about. It's like you hold space for someone in a way. Like I think people, similarly to Reiki, when you're giving someone a facial, you're allowing people to like slow down and like tap into like a space that they like normally don't get to. Like,
Right.
so it's like, I think and then sometimes people are kind of like faced with themselves, and that's like why things can come up, like what you just shared exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like really, because in a lot of ways, like all healing work is just putting a mirror up to someone else. Like it's not, it's like it's giving someone the time to like check in with themselves in a way that they may not have for a really long time or ever.
It's so cool.
Yeah, it's
It's
really
deep,
cool.
but it's cool.
Yeah, for sure.
So, fellow stoner,
Yeah.
how do you incorporate cannabis into your life, and does it impact the way that you practice Reiki?
That's a good question. Okay, so yeah, it's weird because okay, so I've smoked for like I guess most of my entire like adult life, and then it's so funny because like a month before the pandemic, I actually was like, I'm gonna take a break from smoking, and I didn't smoke for like 8 months. I don't really know how I did that. Like when the pandemic started, I was like, wait, why did I decide now to take a break from this? This is insane. But I somehow kept going for like a while, and then I came back, like I've been back for like a year. And yeah, I mean, it's so interesting because especially with having my mom get sick and stuff, I mean, I've just morphed and shifted my views on like how I feel about cannabis and what it is to me. I mean, it's always been something that I feel positive about, or that's been like a big part of my life, but it's just been interesting with taking that break and coming back to it and feeling like it is so medicinal, even though I know that I also use it in a way that isn't necessarily medicinal too. So it's like I feel like all over the place with it. Like sometimes I'm like, should I be smoking all day? And then I'm like, it makes me creative and amazing. And like it's just so I do like I'm not somebody who's like, oh, I can't smoke at all. Like I think it actually does kind of bring me into balance, but it is like a fine line. So like I try to smoke where I'm like still, totally like, functional and whatever when I like do things, and then I smoke in a different way when I'm like, it's nighttime and I'm chilling and whatever. And it is like, yeah, I feel like I just feel like I have a tricky relationship with it because I feel like sometimes I do think it's like very spiritual and I feel intentional about it. And then there's other times when I'm just like, I am smoking because I want to just completely like numb myself right now. And I don't think that's like completely wrong or anything. It's just, I guess I'm being candid or vulnerable and open about the ways in which I feel a lot of different ways about it. And then I was able to help my mom with it. And like, so I went from it being kind of more of like a secretive thing with my family to like, oh, I'm going to smoke a million bong rips in the garage because my mom's fucking dying right now. And I'm also helping her with weed. And I'm also like, I need this, And I remember my brother coming into the garage once and being like, is this helping? Because like everything was like so crazy. And I was kind of thinking like, even if it's like whatever, if it is or if it isn't at this point, like it's comforting me, it's like a security blanket. And so yeah, I think that I don't like yeah, I definitely what I really like I don't think you asked this directly, but like what I wanted to say about this too is like a lot of the work to me that I do is about giving people experiences that are akin to getting stoned, but are like maybe more clear for some people, like elevated experiences, whether it be through breath work or Reiki or different things. So like I had a friend who was my favorite, my at an old job, we were like the stoner kids at the job, and like we like smoked together, and like he's great. And he came to me for a Reiki session when I first started doing it, and he asked me if he thought he should smoke before it, and he kind of asked his girlfriend too. And then I was kind of like, whatever, go either way. And then he was like, he's like, I decided not to smoke right before the session because I just kind of wanted to feel like what it was going to be like. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's cool. Like, and so I like that this work I like feeling like you can get high on yourself, and that's what I love about the work. So like I haven't been like blending it as much, like being like, I used to, when I did a lot of IRL stuff before the pandemic, I would integrate like CBD and like put CBD oil on people like during a Reiki session and things like that. And I would definitely do stuff like that again. And I advise people, like lots of people ask me like, oh, I have anxiety and I've been advised about cannabis. Like, what do you think I should try? Like I'll tell people stuff like that, but officially it's not like I don't know. I was just saying it's not a huge part of my practice, but then that sounds like wrong too. But like, I
Yeah.
guess I don't know. I feel like maybe I don't have like a one answer to this, obviously. I feel like I'm like, and it's like this, but it's also a little like this. But hopefully I'm making some sense to someone.
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense. I mean, like, I've kind of turned into a daily smoker, but
Yeah.
I mean, like, I can go without it. It's like some days, like, especially on a Friday or something, when I just need to let go and decompress and kind of numb out, like,
Yeah.
for sure, I will do a few bong rips, smoke a blunt, take an
Yeah.
edible, and I will become a potato for the rest of the evening.
Yes.
So, like, I totally get it. And other times I'm like, I need to be more focused. I need to be more aware. And like, I can't fuck around. So, like, I won't even touch it.
Yeah. And sometimes that's like when I'll just like, I actually just got a bunch of CBD flowers. So sometimes I'll smoke like CBD just because I'm like, I love smoking so much. Like, I love the ritual of smoking. I love to smoke. I love like a bong, like bongs are my preferred method. I like as much smoke like coming into my lungs as possible, which is also like, if
Can't wait
people
till
are like,
they.
whoa, and you do breath work, I'm like, yeah, like, okay, maybe that's why I can take such big bong rips. But yeah, like but I think it's important, yeah, to also kind of just assess like where you're at with certain things at certain times, and like just be like mindful about it. And yeah, not, I don't know, I just think sometimes, yeah, like you were saying, sometimes it's like you need to focus more, other times you don't, like you could go without it. Like I feel like I can't go without it right now, but but
I
I'm
get
also
that.
like but also like not like, yeah, like if I'm gonna, I didn't drive for like over a decade because I lived in the cities, and I've been driving now in New Jersey, but not even for that long. And I'm like, so things like that, sometimes I'm like, okay, like maybe getting really stoned and then driving when you're not super comfortable driving again yet is not the best thing right now. So like just certain things like that, like checking in with it like that, I think is important. But yeah, I'm definitely grateful to weed, and I don't really drink that much. Oh, and one thing is like Reiki, and like doing Reiki, like being a Reiki practitioner and a Reiki teacher, it does make you like more sensitive to everything. And that's something that I feel like I have to like remember and like honor about myself, because I am an extremely sensitive person. And like I'll just, like I used to be able to drink a lot, and like now it's like I drink like a sip of wine, and I feel like it's like I drink a whole glass. And it's like things like that, like I have to be really mindful of. And sometimes I have to remember that that's like with weed as well, even though
Yeah.
obviously I've like built up a tolerance again since I've been back on it for a while. But I do like that whole time I'm glad that I had that time, because it was in a way, it felt like I was on a different drug. When you're used to smoking for so long, it's like not doing it is its own like weird trippy experience to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I definitely agree with that. So, what would you say your typical Reiki sessions like?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Okay. I was like, there's two different kind of things, I guess, because there's in person and then there's virtual sessions, which I've done a lot more virtual stuff. And then they're like in the past year. And then there's a lot of, I do group stuff, and then I do one-on-ones. But in general, it's like people come and then kind of talk about like, kind of do like a little check-in, kind of like what kind of brought them there, like what, like have they had Reiki before, like what's going on with them right now. I used to call it like unofficial therapy, I guess that's kind of still what it is, but I just don't say that anymore.
Yeah.
But like people, because I'm not a licensed therapist, and like that's the other thing, like I like to um let people know like this kind of work is not a replacement for like therapy and things like that, but it can be a really great like thing to happen like coinciding with that work as well. But yeah, so people come and then they're like, we just kind of do a little check-in, and then they lay down, and like even if they're on Zoom with me or whatever, like they lay down, and like and then in real like IRL, like there's like I do like light touch, like some people do like right above the, like they're kind of like in the auric field is what they say, and like they're like right above, kind of just like feeling the energy. And some people do it because they feel like they can actually feel the energy better that way. But like I like to do light touch because also touch is so like I like to like what I like to say, especially about virtual sessions, it's like the touch itself, you know, like isn't the Reiki, like the Reiki's like flowing through that, but like touch itself is so healing. Like, as you know, being an esthetician, it's like it's so healing for people, and like people don't get enough of it, especially now. So that part alone is just like it really like soothes people's nervous systems and like brings them like, you know, um another way that I like to describe Reiki, not other than tuning into your own frequency, is forced meditation, which sounds funny, but like what I mean is just it can be like really hard to meditate or just to even like get into that mode at all when you're just by yourself or even listening to like a guided meditation. And so with Reiki, I feel like it just like brings you into that like um that mode, and it like you just feel like you've been meditating for like a while right in the beginning. Sometimes not for everyone, but that's how some people can feel. And then yeah, I just do I make playlists for everybody. Like I make like I make intuitive playlists for people. Like, so if you like, so somebody books a one-on-one session with me, I make a playlist like for that specific session. And then you get that playlist afterwards, and it's like a combination of like there's some like healing kind of music on it, like healing frequency stuff, but there's also like pop music and indie music, and like I don't know, I like a lot of different, I just play a lot of different stuff, but it's all kind of I mean, it's nothing like if you had like a Reiki session, I'm not playing like techno music, but like sometimes with like breath work, it'll be more like different kind of like eclectic all over the place music. But with the Reiki, it's mostly like chill stuff. And like I just think that's also really healing and helpful for people to have that, and like also is something to have later. And it's like the Reiki infuses just like everything that's happening. Like it infuses the music, it infuses the touch, it infuses when we're even talking just in the beginning. And then yeah, there's not really any talking like during when I give people Reiki, or when we're in the actual like you're laying down. And I just have people are laying down like fully clothed, like on like a massage table, and I just have people laying on their back the whole time, unless somebody has specifically something like on their back that they're like working with. Just because I feel like the Reiki has its own intelligence. It flows to wherever you need it. Like I don't even really need to know where that is. You don't need to know. But it's like so you don't really, it's not like a, you know, where you actually have to receive it like on the front and then you turn around, like, and it's just nice for people to just lay the whole time. And like and yeah, even so when I do sessions virtually, all of that's happening, except for I'm obviously not like with them in person and touching them. But it's like really interesting because people have like all sorts of experiences where like they just definitely feel like they're having an experience. And like I in a way, I don't want to elaborate on purpose, because I think it's just sort of important to be like, lots of things can happen, but it's like different for everyone, and it's always exactly what's like meant to be happening. And so when you kind of tell someone too much of like, this is what's happened for someone, like if it doesn't happen for them like that, you know, they might think, why? But like that doesn't mean it's like wrong, you know, kind of talking about what you said about getting really emotional. Like that's not like, oh, the session went wrong, you know, like that's like, no, that's what it was. That's what that person needed. They like needed that emotional release. But yeah, I'm like maybe all over the place now, but rein me back in. What else should I say?
Good. Have you ever had any visions or intuitive thoughts about a person that you are performing a Reiki session on?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And there are some Reiki practitioners who like will like share a lot of information with you like that. And like what I think is important is like that can happen, but like that's also not like necessarily like, oh, that has to happen and like that's Reiki. And like sometimes, because I think sometimes people come to Reiki and they think it's going to be more like a psychic reading or something. And I think what's important to note is just like, yeah, certain things can come up, but I try to be really what's the word, I just try to be really mindful, I guess, of like what comes up and like what needs to be shared with someone and like in what way it needs to be shared with someone. And So I guess like the most times that I can like have a memory of that I would even be able to be like, oh yeah, this happened, is like a really good friend of mine, because I was like very comfortable being like, I see your baby, like I see da da da, like, but I don't usually do that because like I don't usually even try to go into that. Like things will just sort of come up sometimes. Like
Right.
one example of something is like, I one time was hearing all these like really negative things that the person had been like saying or thinking about themselves. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to share that. You know, like I just kind of, I was like, I talked about things kind of around that, but I was like, I don't need them to know that I heard that all, you know, like it just felt
Right.
like, so it's like, I think that stuff can come up, but it's like, I'm not seeking it or like going like, oh my God, I need to receive information for this person so that they like feel like they got something out of this session. Cause I think that can happen. And that's like ego, like not always. Like I don't think it's always like not, you know, I should just speak to like, this is my style of it. And like, this is the
Yeah.
way that I do it. But yeah, I answered your question, I guess, in a lot of different stories, but yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
I
I just
have
have
experienced it. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like I would just have to assume that that would happen to someone who is sensitive because you are in such a deep meditative state
Yeah.
and you are, you know, working on someone with your energy. So I just have to assume that it would happen, but I just didn't know.
Yeah, totally, totally. And I think, but I think something when you just brought that, when you just said it back, that I something is like that's really important with all of us in these day and age and everything, but especially with like healing work and all of this, is boundaries. And I think that that's something that I try to like keep in mind as well. It's like I'm not like that's why I think I brought up like the reading, because it's like if someone's going to someone for a reading, like that's a different way in which they're getting connected to the person's energy. Whereas like when I'm just like, I'm a channel for you to receive this Reiki that isn't actually coming from me, it's like I'm a channel for it. Like I'm not really there to try, I'm not really supposed to, in my mind, pick up on a lot of stuff. So and I try, and I think another question that you had, not to get ahead of us, is just
No, you're good.
getting depleted by an
Yeah.
energy and all that. That can, I think that happens a lot more when you are in that realm of like, I'm just so sensitive and so vulnerable and so open and not in my boundaries as much, that I'm just going to get all this stuff. And then like, what am I going to do with all this information? You know, it's like, now I have to like process it. So it's like, I think I try not to pick up on a lot of messages, is long story long.
So long story long. I like that. So how is it that you managed to stay grounded during it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm like, some of it is like things like, yeah, making sure I'm not smoking like a ton of weed. Well, obviously not like right before a session, but like in general, things like making sure I eat properly, things that I'm still like trying to figure out for myself, like the ongoing quest of like giving myself nutrients, like, and hydrating enough. And I mean, because honestly, a lot of it is like basic stuff like that, you know, that just like, it's, for me at least, it's like, it's really just like taking care of my body and doing this work myself. Like I used to get Reiki like every month when it was before the pandemic, and now I get it sometimes, but I do breathwork groups like monthly, and like I go to therapy. And so like just things like having that stuff sorted out, and like yeah,
Mhm.
and also just really like honoring how sensitive I am. And like things like today, like I don't usually have to drive like every day, and like today, like my husband's like phone broke, so then I had to like drive him to a faraway mall because that was the only place he could get an appointment. And I was like, oh my God, this is not good for my nervous system. Why is this happening the day that I have an interview and I'm going to be on this awesome podcast? Like I was like, this is too much for me. And like instead of being like, oh, I should be able to handle all of this, I think today might have been one of the first days where I was like, actually, this is just how I am, and I need to recognize that like this is like, yeah, this is a lot of stuff I wasn't planning on doing today. And it's like driving somewhere I never drove before. So I'm just like, ah, but like, yeah. So I think I just try to be taking care of myself. But I'm not always doing the best job of that. So like, I think sometimes, um, that's when I would be like a lot more tired versus just being not as affected or even sometimes very energized by it, because that's one of the really cool things about Reiki. It's like it is flowing through me to like get to the person. So it's like I am getting this beautiful, gentle, healing energy as well. So I can feel really good. But it's all about balance, because like yeah, sometimes like, you know, going back to me being like, oh, I like that this work can get you high on yourself. It's like yeah, you can feel like really elevated. So yeah, like I bring clients like back to what at the end of a session, like grounding, like by if I'm with them in person, like coming back down to like their feet and just really thinking about bringing back grounding energy and like earth energy, because a lot of times at the end of a session they're feeling very like floaty and it's like hard to like go home or drive home or whatever. So yeah, and just the grounding energy and even just little things like after I'm done with a session with someone, like washing my hands, like, and just being like, okay, I'm done with this session and like, I'm done with this. I mean, I'm sure you have to do things as well, like between clients and stuff as an esthetician, like just even things when you're doing little ritualistic things that seem just like, oh, I'm cleaning up these supplies or I'm getting ready for the next client. Like that can be a way of like kind of like cleansing energy and then going to the next, you know, one without bringing that into the next session.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how do Reiki and chakras coincide?
Oh yeah, cool. So chakras are really, you know, just a way to think about energy, and like chakras are in the Hindu system, and I guess there's different I guess ways, but in the Hindu system of the seven chakra system, which I know the most about, and I'm not like a scholar in it by any means, but like is
Professor Mooney.
so that yeah, professor of chakras. I'm like my monitor, my computer is sitting on top of the complete book of chakras right now, so that's probably not the ideal place for that book to be. But it's a really thick book. It's amazing, but it's just one of those books where you're like, I'm obviously never gonna read all of this. You know, it's just kind of a reference book.
Right.
But yeah, so really, you know, Reiki, we're talking about like energy and all this stuff, it's like obviously can be like very esoteric for some people, and so there's just like ways to think about like your energy centers and like where you may be like holding certain things, and so chakras are like one way of thinking about that. And then more recently when I've been reading this book, that's like I think it's called The Japanese Art of Reiki, and there's a way of thinking about energy in like a 3 diamond system, and there's like I think it's earth key, heaven key, and what is it? It's earth key, heart key, and heaven key. And I like thinking of those 3 energy centers too, because it's like earth key is kind of like where like the root chakra is and stuff. And then it's like heart key, you can think about your heart, and then heaven key, but it's like heart connects like heaven and earth, and like I don't know if I'm sounding like now I'm just sounding like a stoner making up stuff about energy, but like I guess what I just mean is like yeah, chakras relate to Reiki because Reiki is a way of energy healing, and so it's like nice to think about where the energy could be located for people, but it really I mean it can be different for different people. So it's like certain people you know, it's like not, I don't know, it's weird. It's like in some ways I feel like the stuff really does live in those places in the body, but it's like if that doesn't resonate for someone, then like think about energy in like a different way. Like think about energy in a way where it's like when someone walks into a room and then they make the whole room feel different, and then it's like that is energy too, you know. So it's like I think it's just obviously naturally people that like maybe do yoga and know more about like the Hindu chakra system than like learn about Reiki, it just kind of like fits. But like I think what I've been learning too is like that's also the sort of more westernized version of Reiki, is like learning about the energy in the 7 chakra system versus this like 3 diamond system. So I'm just like really fascinated by like the different ways to think about energy. But yeah, like it's definitely the most, I think it's the most way, like the 7 chakra system is like, if you're following a bunch of like wellness people on Instagram like I am, like that's the one that like people talk about the most. So it's like I think it's the one that's helpful for people to visualize. And we work with it in breathwork as well. And like the way that when we talk about breathing, the way that we breathe, we're talking about like moving that energy from like one place to another, and we're thinking about the 7 chakra system as well. So it really is like a really great way to think about energy. I've just been starting to think about it in the 3 diamond system too, because I like the simplicity of it, and I like that it's not 7, and like I like that it's the Japanese way of thinking about energy. And I don't know. And Reiki, and then it's like ki is energy, I don't know. I
I'm
just
into
think
it.
it's cool. Yeah. But yeah, it's just like related. It's like a way to think about energy is like the short answer to that.
Right. So when or why would someone come see a Reiki therapist?
Yeah, good question. I've been thinking about that recently because I actually just contributed to this zine that's going to come out, and it's about the theme of the zine is transitions. And I do think that like Reiki can be supportive for like lots of different things, but like transitions is like a huge thing. And like even thinking about like the big transition of like from life to death, like Reiki, in some ways I think Reiki is like working in like a liminal space, like Reiki. And that's why you talked about when we were talking about getting messages and stuff, it's like Reiki can like open you up to like an unseen world, I guess, is a good way to put it. And it's like, so I think Reiki can just be like really supportive for transitions of all kinds. I guess I went to the most extreme one, but like going back from that, like things like moving, people have come to me before they have a final because they want to just like feel really chill.
Yeah.
Um, I have someone came to me once. A lot of people don't know, like, I guess what they want necessarily, or maybe they think they know what they want from it. And then it like, gives them something different. Like, I guess it's like someone came to me once and I think they just were like curious about trying Reiki. And then they had all this like work stress going on, like when they came into the session. And then when they left, they were like, whoa, I've like never felt like this in my entire life. I've like never been able, like she had like never been able to like compartmentalize between like, it was like, I mean, I'm sure a lot of us can relate to this, but just basically feeling like there's an ongoing, like anxiety thread in your head of like work stuff, and it like never ends. And like she felt like that was like not there like for a while, and she was like, this is the most amazing feeling ever. And like I don't think she wouldn't even have known to like ask for that, like
Yeah.
but yeah, like people, it's really, yeah, it's interesting. Like people, I think what's been cool is like people have, I do like some Reiki groups and people like that, because I do think sometimes it's hard to like explain like why someone would want to experience Reiki without like just being like, oh, just try it. And like it's like, why would someone pay like over $100 to like try a session if they were like, I have no idea what this even is. So what's
Right.
nice about, that's why I like doing like the groups and things, so you can get like a sense of what it's like, and then like maybe then you'll have more like intentions or specific things of that it would bring up, that would be like, oh, I could work on this if I came one-on-one, because I could talk more about like what I'm personally going through. So I think it's like, depending on like what people are going through, it just can be like extremely supportive. And like I would say last year I saw some people like every week. I didn't see them every week for Reiki, but I saw some people like every other week, like Reiki one week, breathwork another week. And it was just like, and they also were seeing a talk therapist, but it was just like it was a way for them to like move like energy and like emotion and like process things that they were going through, like in the pandemic, probably in general, but also like stuff that might have been coming up in therapy or things. So yeah, I guess that's kind of general. Like it can just be really supportive for a lot of things, but I was trying to give like some examples.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, like, it's good to know. So you also practice tarot.
Yes.
Would you mind sharing how you got into that?
Yeah. So I think I mentioned like, I had like this deck a long, long time ago, I think in high school or junior high school. And it was this like Wizard of Oz tarot deck, but like I just, that was like my first time of ever like having a deck. And then like I don't know what happened to that deck, and I'm pissed because it's like $200 on eBay now, and I want the Wizard of Oz tarot deck. But anyway, I digress. But like I always was like into like curious about it and like dabbled in it here and there. And I took like a class maybe like 4 or 5 years ago now, that was like tarot. It was a tarot 101 class, but it was like over the course of like 2 months, and it was like every other Sunday or something like that. And I remember the last class, they like sprung it on us that like, and now you will be reading for people. And I was like, oh, hell no. And like, I just remember, thankfully, me and this other person were both like not, I think we were both really hungover actually. And we were like, let's be partners because we are not ready to read for people and we're freaking out. And so that was like 5 years ago or whatever. And then, but I always continued to like have my own relationship with it. But then I think I also just was like, am I really going to be one of those healers who does like a billion different things? And like, there's a lot of tarot readers out there. And like, do I really want to also be doing that? Um, and then I took a class with my really good friend, Lindsay Silverman, who has also made this beautiful deck that's called the Intuitive Night Goddess deck. And it's like the deck that I do all my readings with now for like clients and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it because like all the cards are goddesses and like some of the cards are different, but it's like this, it's based on the Rider-Waite-Smith deck still. So it's like, yeah, but I took a class with her. It was a 10-week course online. And it was awesome. And I think it was called Intuitive Tarot. And it just like, I think it just finally like got me that, with the combination of, I took a class with my Reiki teacher about, and it was a class on channeling. And between the channeling experience and the 10-week Reiki course, the 10-week tarot course, I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like, I just kind of felt like, oh, I can do this. And then it made me think, oh, like, that's why there are so many tarot readers, because everyone is different, and like everyone will go to you for different, reasons, or connect with different people. And just your style is a lot, based on who you are, like as an intuitive person. And like, I'm like, oh yes, there's room for me, like in the tarot ecosystem. And I also like combining tarot and Reiki, which I'm like not trying to keep remembering the questions that you had. I'm like, and I'm gonna answer another question.
No, it's okay. You can hop into that though.
Yeah.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah. So like I think that what's really cool about tarot is like, so with Reiki, I think I was saying how I don't really talk like, during the session. It's like we talk in the beginning, we do wrap it up at the end. And sometimes I would actually do a card pull when I used to have an office in the city. And I would always do like card pulls for people, but it wasn't tarot. It was like different oracle decks and things. But I felt like that was like a nice like touchstone for people, and like people always love to like read about their card and like pick a card and like take a picture of their card and all that. And so like that was always really fun. But now that I'm doing, it's interesting because you brought up this chakra system, and as much as I'm like, oh, I like working with the new Japanese system, I've actually been doing these tarot readings where it's a 7 chakra, like I check in with your chakras by pulling cards, and then we do a little Reiki like meditation like at the end about like kind of what came up with the cards and stuff, and just kind of to like seal it, like clear it, like bring you into like the energy of like going forward in whatever energy you want to go forward in with the information that came up, like from checking in with where you're at right now in this present moment. So I've been doing that, and I did one that was like, I also do like space clearings, like at different like shops and houses and things, like when people feel like there's like stagnant energy, or just to kind of like bring in clients to a shop. And like, so the last one I did at a shop was like a combination, like we did the like checking in with the energy with cards, and then I do Reiki like to the actual like store and to the person. And like, yeah, it's just like, it's like what I like about it. And I guess I brought up the not talking during the Reiki, is that I get to like talk, and then I get to like make something sort of feel a bit more tangible for people in a way that it doesn't sometimes when it's like a bit more, like this kind of, sensory experience that doesn't have like cards around it.
So do you read publicly then, or just like personally for like people you kind of know?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've just started reading publicly, but I was just doing it for people that I like already knew or like previous clients. But now I read for whoever wants to book with me. But I need to make it more of an obvious thing on my website soon. But yeah, I'm doing tarot.
Pretty cool. So has anybody ever challenged you during a tarot card reading?
Thankfully, not yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I don't necessarily go like, this is gonna happen. Like, I don't know if I give statements in a way that are very challenging for. I try to be. It's more kind of a bit of a conversation, a collaborative. Like, I think there are some people who, give more like, this is gonna happen, and like,
Right.
this is what's going on, and like, that's not really how my style. So knock on wood, my style won't bring in people arguing with me. But if it happens, it happens. But it's very interesting because I do really feel like I'm in, like, I'm channeling, like when I'm doing the reading, like things are like coming up for me that I'm just like getting from like being in this like portal. So it would
So
be really
cool.
interesting if someone was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
because I'd be kind of like, well, like tried not to take it personally, going back to the boundaries and grounding.
Yeah. So yeah, that would, I mean, like, that'd be crazy. I would be really like nervous if somebody yelled at me.
Me too, for
Sort of
sure.
apologizing. I'm sorry, it wasn't me, it was the cards.
Yes, yeah.
Do you practice any other holistic therapies?
Yeah, so breath work, which I think I kind of mentioned a little bit,
Yeah.
which is it's like, I was just gonna say, I guess it's pranayama. It's like, so I was taught the breath work trainings that I did, it was like mainly the person was just like, and we just call it breath work. And so it's kind of confusing because people are like, what? Like, that's such a general term. But the way that I do it, it's like it's a 3-part breath, and you like breathe into your stomach, into your heart, and then out, and it's all happening through your mouth, and you're laying down, and it's just like and like that. This is where like people get like a runner's high, basically. Like, you kind of get like, you start tingling, like people can get like cramping feelings, and that's
Hmm.
weird, but like all sorts of stuff can happen. It's really interesting, it's really trippy. Like, I've yeah, like it's kind of like, I mean, this is the one where I really say like, oh, you're getting high off of yourself, because you really are. Like,
Yeah.
you're and some people, it's not for everyone. Like, some people are like, whoa, like I did not like that. It is kind of like and you can really go like hard in it and not go hard in it. Like, I'm not like for like 30 minutes. Some people do that, like, I'm
Pass
like
out.
not. Yeah, like I am not about that. I did have a client once that was really, it's really funny. That's like the wrong word, but I mean, it was funny because it was actually my sister-in-law, and she was doing breath work with me on the internet, and she was like, I'm a really good breather, and she like just like went hard, and I was like, lady, and then like it was not in person, so I kind of was like, whoa, what if she just like hyperventilates? It was a really good lesson for me in being like, you have to like trust, but also I was like, and we can slow down now. Like, I like did need to like bring it into like, but yeah, all that being said, if you, in the best case scenario, if it's something that you jive with and you like, it's like very like, it's, you get into kind of like a rhythm with it, and then it can like, you can literally kind of like trip out, and like you can journey places, and like and some people just like get really emotional, and like you get like, there's a time where, depending on the group and the teacher, the guide, like there's a time where people yell, and like you can like, you get prompted to like all like scream if you want. And it's like,
Hmm.
what's really cool is I love doing it like virtually now, because I did do it in person a lot. It is really cool in person. In the trainings, they're like kind of like healing retreats as well, because you do breath work in the trainings. It's an amazing experience, like being with all these people, and like having everybody, just kind of be willing to like go there and like process emotions in this way, and like really go for it. But what I love about having it virtual is you can just be doing this in like your own bed in your own room, and like have your own experience with it, and like not feel like, oh, you're right next to somebody that you don't know, and that you're like, maybe I
Yeah.
don't want to have an emotional breakdown next to this person I don't know. I mean, breakdown is a little extreme, but like, but yeah, it's just and with that, it's like, I do really really like I love making the playlist for that because it's like a journey that you like go on. And then it's like you do this breath work for on average, like, I don't know, 15 to 30 minutes of like the active breath work. And then you rest for like 15 minutes. And like that is like a really deep, like shavasana, like feeling. And it's just, and that part too, you can like receive messages, like people get like, sometimes people prompt people to journal in that time because you can just have all these like wild thoughts and like yeah, it's, or you just like really bliss out and you're just like really tingly and you feel like, and you just really feel like you're high, like on yourself or just high in general. But yeah, it's really and it does like it moves emotions. It's like, that's why bringing up the chakra system again, it's like, so what they kind of say, it's like breathing into the stomach and stuff. It's like, that's like the root and like the sacral chakra. And that's like about like survival and like, you know, things like being loved and like taken care of, and like things like creativity are there. And like, so you can just like, I think the idea is that, you know, things happen to us throughout our whole life and like they like stay with us, you know, and like the energy of all of that like does not leave. And so sometimes the energy can just be really built up or like feel stagnant and just make us not feel like we're like in our flow as like human beings, like, you know, vibing in our higher selves. And so I think the idea is like things like breath work, things like Reiki, things like tarot, you know, can like help you contextualize and then like move that energy. So yeah, I and like some people combine breathwork and Reiki. Like some people will, you do the breathwork part and then in the resting part you get like Reiki. So that's cool too. And yeah, I mean, I'm like, do I do anything else that I'm like forgetting about right now? I don't think so. I think I've talked about most of it.
That's all good. So, how do you feel like practicing and performing holistic forms of therapy have impacted your life?
Yeah. Well, I mean, definitely like just as far as like being with my like own healing journey, like it's just made me like form my own like, you know, spiritual, like what I believe in, and like just like really follow my own authority. But I think it also has really helped me process things like my mom, you know, being sick and like passing away. And I just feel really grateful that like I was able to like do a lot of these trainings and like meet a lot of the people. I mean, honestly, in the breathwork trainings were, because the Reiki trainings were awesome and I do still have friends from them, but they were pretty small. And the breathwork trainings were like 40, 50 people were like in each of the ones I did. And I have like at least maybe like 5 really good friends. And then I've like met other people through them. And like, just I don't it's just I feel so grateful because it was just so like wildly supportive, like in ways that I don't even think I really understood a lot of like when it was happening, because I was just so in like grief and so like traumatized. And like, I mean, now we're all traumatized. Like if anyone like had any like doubt that there was like some people in the world who hadn't experienced trauma, it's like we've all been going through this like pandemic, and obviously varying levels of like trauma, but like it's just like I think and so at the beginning of the pandemic, it's like I really shifted like to, thankfully I'd already been doing some virtual stuff, but I just like shifted to doing a lot more of it, and I offered a lot of free sessions and things, and I did stuff on Instagram, and like it did feel really like I just felt like that was like a way of feeling like I wasn't completely helpless, and that there was like something that I could do in a time when like it felt like there was like nothing that we could control, and there was like nothing. And like and actually like right before the pandemic, I was like looking at going back to like getting some sort of project management job too, because I was like, I need to make more money. And then the pandemic happened, and I was like, that just wasn't even an option, and I got to completely like focus on doing this healing work. And like and now that we're kind of, you know, in a different phase of it, like it's definitely not over, but I was like able to go to California and like teach a really small training. And like now that I can do stuff like that, I'm just like really, like it just all kind of feels like I got on this like Reiki path really. And like it just continues to unfold. And not that I have like nothing to do with that, I definitely do. But like it's like I don't think I brought up the word magic once yet, but there is a lot of magic involved in all of this, and like I
Yeah.
definitely deeply believe in magic, and like I don't mean that in like a way of like bringing a bunny out of a hat. Like I mean like, you know, we all have, like, everyone is intuitive and everyone has psychic abilities and everyone has like, you know, access to some sort of magic that's like uniquely their own. And I think
Mm.
we all, you know, get disconnected from that, like through capitalism. And then we have to try to like get our way back to ourselves in some ways and like feel that power. And these are all ways in which to get that. And so I guess that's the long answer is, yeah, like I it's really been so supportive for me, and then it's just made me really like I just don't know what I feel really grateful that I'm able to do this, but
Mm-hmm.
like I just can't even imagine like doing anything else either. And I remember saying that when I first got my Reiki training, even though at that point I was like, am I totally crazy? Like, my mom's sick. Like, I have no idea if I'm able to do this at all for like real work, you know? But like now I'm like, okay, like it's just like, it's one of those things where it's like, wow, looking back on how far you've come, but you like have to do that sometimes and then be like, oh, yeah. Like, this is the path I'm supposed to be on.
Yeah. It's always weird when like things start unfolding the way that
Yeah.
they're meant to unfold, and you're like, ugh. Like it's just like, you know, when it's right, it's right.
Totally. And just so many things connect that like sort of felt like, oh, why did I do this before? And then you're like, oh, because now this is happening. Like, one example is just like when I was getting ready to do that Reiki training. So like one of the things when you attune people to Reiki, you kind of like have to like hold your breath in like a certain way. And I was like kind of practicing that. And then I was like, oh, I know how to do this because like I used to take voice lessons and I used to sing and I did musical theater and I know how to hold my breath and I know how to hold a note and I'm already ready and I already know. And it like felt like
Yeah.
so cool. Like it was just like, oh, everything has been leading up to this. Like I'm ready for this. Like I forgot that I already know how to do this from like a different thing, you know?
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it all makes sense, but it doesn't make sense before it happens. But then once it
Yeah.
happens, it's like, yep.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of like, yeah, surrendering to like something that's greater. And like, I think that's what a lot of this work has like given to me is like, I don't know, like it doesn't have to be, you know, to some people it's like the universe, spirit, God, whatever you call it. But it's like, I firmly believe that there is like this like higher source that I'm like able to tap into that is bigger than me. And that when I am able to surrender to that and not like completely just be in my own anxiety, that that it's like really awesome. I mean, you can also have anxiety and tap into that.
Yeah.
Just disclaimer for everyone because I am always anxious in some degree.
Yeah, that's my life story. I'm like 24/7. It's who I am.
Yeah, it's me. I know. It's like, is it sensitivity? Is it anxiety? It is all of the above.
It's both. Yeah.
Yeah, for
So where
sure.
can our friends find you?
Yeah, so as you know, on Instagram, I am Lauren Ann Mooney, and it's Ann with an E, which is my middle name, but was also my mom's name. So I like to honor my mom.
Shout out to mom.
Yeah, shout out to mom. And yeah, so my Instagram is like, I guess the most active thing, but I also, my website is lamooney.com. And yeah, either like that, like just, yeah, follow me, DM me, whatever, have any questions. But like either, I think on my site, you can book like a 15-minute, intro free thing with me if you'd like. But I also, yeah, I do groups. I do virtual breathwork groups every month now again. And I'm going to do virtual Reiki groups again soon. And I'm also going to do some more trainings. So yeah, just on my Instagram and my website. But yeah, you can sign up for my newsletter on my website too. But my Instagram is I try to keep it pretty up to date.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm definitely gonna sign up for one of your group Reiki schmakies because
Yes.
it sounds like it's gonna be a really awesome experience.
Amazing. I would love to have you.
Awesome, thank you. So now is the time. Would you mind ending this with a mindful moment?
I would be honored to.
Thank
Yes. Yeah, so anyone listening now, later, whenever, if it's available to you and you would like to gently close your eyes, I invite you to do that. But you don't have to. If you don't want to do that, you can just kind of softly gaze. If you're driving right now, don't worry. You can still have a mindful moment. Just don't close your eyes, probably. But yeah, take a deep breath in through your nose and let a sigh out your mouth. If you want to do a couple more of those at your own pace, just invite you to imagine that your feet are planted firmly on the ground, or that the floor is firmly beneath you if you're laying down. And just breathing in to that beautiful earth energy that's holding your feet, holding your body. And maybe you lift your shoulders and then drop them back down. Whatever feels good right now. Maybe sending the breath anywhere that might feel a little tight. Maybe turning your neck from side to side, working out some kinks. Oh. Just taking another deep breath in through your nose. And as you sigh out, releasing anything that you don't need right now. You don't even need to know what that stuff is. Just letting go of anything you don't need in this present moment. Releasing it to the earth. And then breathing in new, vibrant, energizing, creative energy. And then at that next exhale, just imagining your feet a little bit firmer and the roots beneath your feet. I'm breathing into some beautiful earth tree energy. Now I invite you, if it feels good, you can stretch your arms up overhead and you can start to bring in some more movement. And you can gently open back up your eyes and come back into the room.
I don't want to.
Or you don't have to.
That was so relaxing. Lauren, thank you so much for being a part of this. You were an absolutely incredible woman. I mean, like, you're filled with so much knowledge, and I really learned a lot from this. So thank you so much for sharing.
You're so welcome. I was really happy to be on this. I hope I wasn't talking too fast the whole time, but
No.
it was really exciting to get to share all of this information in like one place and also with a like-minded being.
Yeah, it was awesome. I'm so glad I got a new friend.
Yes, me too. I'm so pumped.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren. And you know, everybody make sure you check her out. Check her out on Instagram. Check out her website.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's all be friends.
Definitely, definitely. Enjoy the rest of your time, everyone.
Hey, take care. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
All right,
Bye.
bye.
Take care. Good night.
Night. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I hope you all enjoyed it thoroughly because gosh darn it, I know I did. Make sure you follow Lauren on her Instagram and also follow us. Also, please like and subscribe and tell all of your friends, let's be friends. Ciao, babies.